Prayer often begins with what I want God to do, but Psalm 18 challenges that instinct. Before asking for rescue or strength, David begins with love. This passage invites me to reorder my prayers, loving God for who He is, and letting everything else flow from that foundation.
Psalm 18 verses 1 and 2. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold.
There are moments when my prayer life catches me off guard, not so much because I lack words, but because I suddenly realize what kind of words I am bringing. Psalm 18 opens with David declaring love for the Lord before he asks for anything, and that order tends to embarrass me at these times. I am comfortable talking to God about needs, fears, and outcomes. I am far less practiced at beginning with simple devotion. David's confession comes out of a long history of conflict, danger, and deliverance. This psalm is not written from a place of ease, but from the memory of being rescued again and again. When David calls the Lord his strength, rock, fortress, and deliverer, he is naming what God has already proven himself to be. The imagery piles up because trust has been forged under pressure. God is not a concept here. He is a refuge that has held. That context exposes my own habits. When I am not careful in my conversations with God, I am telling Him what I think should happen next. I bring plans, timelines, and preferred outcomes as though prayer were a strategic meeting where I offer suggestions. I may not say it out loud, but I often treat God as a means to my ends rather than the end Himself. I pray with my goals in mind and ask Him to support them. Psalm 18 calls me back to the point I seem to keep forgetting. The foundation is love for God, not manipulation, not placation, and not subtle bargaining dressed up as devotion. David does not open with requests. He opens with affection and allegiance. Everything else in the psalm flows from that posture. To love God first is to acknowledge that He is sufficient before He is useful. When I begin there, prayer shifts. I am no longer trying to steer outcomes or manage God's response. I am learning to rest in who He is. Strength, refuge, shield, and salvation are not tools I deploy. They are realities I receive. I am still working at this. Loving God for who He is, rather than for what He can do for me, does not come naturally. But Psalm 18 reminds me that real faith begins not with instruction, but with love, and lets everything else flow from there. And that is my thought for today. God bless and have a great day.